Thank you very much for your testimony. With reference to the monies that have already been expended, about what percentage of those figures are attributable to the war in Iraq?
Roughly 70%.
About 70%. And hasn't that varied at times, sometimes much higher, but seldom lower?
Well, earlier on it was lower while we were concentrated disproportionately in Afghanistan.
Earlier on, everything was lower. I'm sure you recall that when the President's top economist, Lawrence Lindsay, suggested that perhaps the initial White House figure of $50 billion for the total cost over all time for the war in Iraq might be off a little bit, they found him another job outside the administration. If I understand the burn figures, as they're referred to presently, we currently spend in about 4 months in Iraq what the White House told the American people initially would be the cost of the total war. Is that about right?
We're spending roughly $11 billion a month.
Well, maybe we actually have an estimate of $12 billion from witnesses this summer from the Pentagon, but perhaps 5 months to spend or almost 5 months to spend the amount of money now American taxpayers, American people are being asked to expend or borrow the money to finance this, that the total cost of the war was alleged to have cost. And then can you tell us, I know that since the President declared mission accomplished, we've had about 97% of all of the service members that we have lost who've been killed in Iraq, who've died since he declared mission accomplished. Do you know about how much money has been spent in Iraq since the President declared mission accomplished?
Well, I think it would be pretty easy to get off of the table that we provided, so we could add that up for you and provide it to you.
Thank you. And as far as whether the accuracy and the veracity of the story from the White House has changed any since these initial estimates of $50 billion in Iraq, you made reference to the analysis that CBO did, that your office did, of the cost of this tragic surge that the President has embarked on. And your analysis showed that the cost of the surge would be substantially greater this year than the White House tried to sell the American people on, didn't you?
Yes, and this was, and maybe I can just explain for a moment, this was an area I had been asked earlier in which the administration explicitly criticized something that CBO did.
Yes, sir. And it is that point that I wanted to focus on, their reaction to a study that was done to try to analyze, so we would have the facts here in Congress of what the true cost in dollars, not in blood, we know that is very high, but the true cost in dollars would be this year. They said that your estimate was inflated, did they not?
They used some inflammatory language, yes, sir.
I think it was stronger than that, and in fact they had apparently omitted to include the support troops. They
Yes.
they just put the people that are out on the front lines, but they didn't consider, I know they contract a lot of that out to Blackwater and the like, but they didn't consider any of the support cost or all of the support cost for those troops.
And in particular, I remember this quite well because it was very early in my tenure, so it sticks in my memory. The administration had announced an increase of 5 brigades in the theater, and we're assuming that we're counting only direct combat troops in terms to get their roughly 20,000 troop increase. Our national security team, which is outstanding, pointed out that you never send combat troops in without military police and the people who help feed them and all of the other support behind them, and that there was no way that you'd send in 5 brigades with only 20,000 troops.
Yes, sir. Well, and looking again throughout this year to see if the veracity index or the mendacity index perhaps of the White House has changed any since that initial $50 billion for the total cost of the war. At the beginning of the year, we were told that we would need next year $147 billion. On July the 31st, talking from your chair, we were told it might be in $165 to $170 billion range. What is the current request total to this Congress to pay for the war in Iraq next year?
Slightly under $200 billion.
So it's already risen to slightly under, it's about 196
That's
billion,
correct.
something like that. And in terms of the total cost, you were asked whether it was the worst case scenario. It's not a scenario in your estimates, the $8,000 for every person. It's not a scenario that you defined, it's one you were given. It does not consider what the cost would be if Vice President Cheney is successful in launching an attack on Iran. It doesn't consider what the cost would be if we kept the current troop levels there in Iraq. But if it's $2.4 trillion, can you just give us some comparison to, say, the budget today, or what $2.4 trillion would purchase that the ordinary American citizen could begin to understand what it means to pay out $8,000 per person?
Well, there's no question that $2.4 trillion is a lot of money. I understand that you and your colleagues have provided many such comparisons for the American public, so I'll leave it at that.
The entire federal budget today, what is that?
It's more than that, but again, that's a 10-year, that's over an extended period of time, and then it's difficult to compare it to a one-year figure.
But the total amount over 10 years would be about what portion of the total federal budget today?
You want me to, again, the $2.4 trillion is over actually more than 10 years, and then it would be I don't know, 3/4 or so of 1 year's federal budget.
Today.
But I'm not exactly sure that I wouldn't normally do that kind of comparison.
Thank you.